Hey, beautiful people! Today I'm going to teach you 12 basic watercolor techniques that you must know if you're a beginner to watercolors. I'm Jane from the page Sigmatra. If you're new here, make sure to click the red subscribe button and also the bell icon so you'll be notified to check on what is new. Let's get started. So come on, go get your watercolor tubes or take all the inks that you've got, or if you have watercolor pens, go get them. I'm going to use watercolor pens for today's 12 basic watercolor techniques that I'm going to teach you. So for the 12 watercolor techniques, first we're going to see flat wash, gradient, wet on wet, dry brush, layering, masking, lifting, dabbing, texture, splattering, negative painting, and the sponge technique. So let's get started. Hope you have got your supplies. So come on. So before getting started, make sure to incline the board at an angle of 20 to 25 degree or just pop the board with the support. And within a minute, you will know how helpful it is. So for this, I'm going to use some kind of jewelry box that I've got at home to keep it as a support. So please kindly note that my board is at the angle of 20 degree and you can do it with any kind of support that you have at home. So yeah, flat wash. When you're doing the flat wash, make sure you don't stop it in the midway to mix more paint. When you stop, the paint on the sheet gets dried up and that is going to make some uneven pigment. By inclining your board, it will help the gravity to work along with the paint. So once when you use water along with it, the gravity will gradually pull the paint and the water down. That will really help you in your flat washes or any kind of watercolor techniques. So as you can see here, no uneven pigmentation, no white marks. Everything is clear and crystal. The next technique that we are going to see is the gradient technique, and this is one of my favorite because it has got a lot of variations. I mean, you can do it multiple colors, or you can do it two colors, or just like me with only single color. So for that, load some pigment onto your brush and gradually stroke the paint down by adding more water to it. So once when you go down, please don't add the pigments. You have to dilute the paint that you have loaded with the brush with more water rather than the pigment. Somehow I felt like the gradient wash of mine wasn't so vibrant, so I wanted to add more of violet hue to it. And that's what I do for gradient wash. Start from the top and gradually stroke it down. More and more pigment, but not in the between, but always from the top. And that's how you get the gradient wash. So now let's move on to wet on bed technique. This can be done when you wet the paper first and go on with the paint itself. With a clean brush, apply some water left to right and left to right. And now take some paint with a wet brush and you can see the magic. You can just create beautiful blooms with this technique called wet on wet. Isn't it magical? I will zoom it in for you of how the paint just spreads on the wet on wet technique. Wow! And the advantage of wet on wet technique is that even if the paint spills off, you can just stroke the paint all the way up there with no uneven pigments. And right now I'm just spreading the paint all over the paper to make it look perfect. Before diving into the dry brush technique, I'm going to show you how another color works on the wet surface. It looks black, but it is red though. And just look at it, beautiful blooms the wet on wet creates. And now let's move on to the dry brush technique. For this technique, the paper and the brush has to be dry, but grab some pigment and then gradually you can apply the paint on the paper. And this dry brush technique is absolutely my favorite to paint the textures. For the wood, it just works awesome, and you can also paint fur with this awesome technique called dry brush technique. And you can of course paint grass with this amazing technique. Now let us learn about the technique called layering, and for this I'm going to separate the paint into 3 parts. The first paint is going to be the dark, the second one is going to be the darker, and the third one is going to be the darkest. So for the first layer, I'm going to grab some lightest paint. In version it is dark, and I'm going to just coat the paint on the paper and then stroke the paint down till the very end of the paper. This is the base layer, so this definitely has to dry. So you can either use hairdryer or hot gun, or you can just leave it as simple as that. Let that layer get dried. Meanwhile, let's move on to masking. For this technique, I'm going to use the normal masking tape. You can either use masking fluid, but I've just chose to use the normal masking tape. I have cut a circle and I'm going to paste it at the corner of the sheet, and have taken 2 stripes of masking tape and I'm going to stick them at the corner of the sheet. Alignment, and yeah, paka. Now I'm going to stroke the paint onto the paper, and this is going to be very random because the masking tape will protect the paint from getting inside them. But make sure that you press the masking tape really gently onto the paper, because even a little air bubble can cause the paint to enter into the paper. Just spreading the paint on the paper, covering the corners and edges, and yeah, masking tape is done. Now let's get back to the layering, and this will be the second layer, and for that I'm going to choose some darker color than the yellow. So I just added a little bit of brown to the yellow, and just as the same way, draw the mountain, layer it, and pull the paint down till the very end. Obviously this has to dry before the third layer is added. Let's move on to lifting. For this, I have chosen the color blue, and I'm going to give a random strokes in this. Actually, I'm doing a flat wash. You can see it. And now, wash away the paint from the brush and grab a towel and wipe away the water from the brush. So obviously you're making the brush dry, but not too dry. And now press the brush onto the paint and just remove the paint off from the surface. Press, lift, and take it off. And that's how lifting works. And this is just amazing to paint sunbeam or sun rays, whatever you call it. I hope you can see it. It is lighter, but I guess you can see it. Yeah. And this is one of the painting that I did with the lifting technique. You can see how the light invades into the dark color. And this technique works amazing. Don't miss the second part of the video because I will be showing a lot of paintings that I've did with these techniques. Let's move on to dabbing. So I'm using an old brush that is lying around at the corner of my home. And this brush, you can see how happily damaged it is. And I've loaded a little amount of paint to it and I'm just dabbing it onto the paper. So that's how dabbing works. And this is really amazing to paint bushes, trees or clouds, whatever that is in your head. You can also add some darker green to quite bring out a layering effect in this. But still, this itself, it's a great thing. So let's come back to layering and paint the final layer of the layering. So this is the darkest color that I've chose, that is actually brown. And I'm going to stroke the paint till the very end of the paper. And that's how you get the technical layering with dark, darker and darkest. Just giving it a little more amount of paint to bring out the peak of the mountain. Gorgeous, gorgeous. And this is one of the paintings that I did with the technical layering. That's how you can see light, lighter and the lightest. The remaining 4 techniques are really going to be awesome and you're gonna love it. So please don't forget to check the second part of the video that will be uploaded on the Friday. Please don't forget to subscribe and give it a big thumbs up if you like this video, and don't forget to share it to the world so everyone will get the joy of painting. Happy painting and God bless you. Goodbye.